Welcome to this overview video of soothe3. In this video, we'll go over what soothe is and how to work with it effectively. Soothe is a dynamic resonance suppressor. It's a tool we created originally to help engineers deal with unpleasant and painful sounding resonant frequencies. Back in the day, the only way to deal with these was to treat them with carefully crafted EQ settings. The most strict engineers might have automated these EQ moves, since some resonances, like the ones found in vocals, tend to shift around and come and go. Soothe identifies problematic resonances and frequency buildups and applies matching reduction dynamically. This results in a smoother, more balanced sound and saves you from having to notch out frequencies by hand. The reduction kicks in only when needed, without affecting other frequency areas. This preserves the timbre of the original sound source, resulting in transparent treatment with minimal artifacts. With the third iteration of Soothe, we aim to create a tool with the best, most transparent sound and the fastest workflow that we could. Let's take a look at the interface next. If you're new to Soothe, the preset menu in the header is a great place to start. There are factory presets built for common use cases: vocals, guitars, drums, creative effects, and much more. Load one that fits your source, and you'll have a solid starting point to build from. And of course, if you really want to learn what a control does, you can open up the manual from the help menu and enable or disable tooltips from the settings menu. All the settings in this menu affect all instances of Soothe. The two most important decisions you'll make when using Soothe are what frequencies you want to treat and how much you want to cut. The biggest elements of the interface are geared for just these questions. The reduction graph allows you to guide Soothe where the cuts are supposed to happen, and the main panel on the left decides the nature of the cuts. Let's take a look at the main panel first. Soothe offers two processing modes, soft and hard. Soft mode uses an adaptive threshold. Rather than reacting to the absolute level of your signal, it looks at the overall frequency balance and turns down resonances which often poke above the wider trend. It's the default for a reason. It's the more transparent mode of the two, and it can handle sources with unpredictable dynamics. Vocals, acoustic instruments start here. Hard mode uses a fixed threshold, making it sensitive to the actual input level, much like a compressor. It's better suited to sources with a more predictable dynamic range, like electric guitars or synthesizers, and it's the mode to reach for when you want a very precise dynamic response. The depth control is your primary lever for how aggressively Soothe works. Depending on your chosen mode, it controls the threshold and the resulting amount of resonance suppression. You'll simply turn it up to get more suppression, regardless of the chosen mode. It has a wide range, so at extreme settings you can reach into sound design territory. Detail controls how narrow Soothe's cuts are. Low values use a wider brush, good for clearing up general frequency buildups or coloration. High values are more like a scalpel, isolating and removing individual resonances very precisely. Note that in soft mode, high detail values also change the speed at which Soothe detects resonances. The aim for this is to keep the processing transparent. Any sharp resonance takes some time to build up, so it doesn't make sense to react very quickly to it. Rapidly moving sharp cuts can also sound unnatural, leading to artifacts in your sounds. The attack and release control the speed of processing and can shape how natural or processed the result sounds. A fast attack catches resonances almost immediately, which can affect transients. A slower attack lets those transients pass through untouched, which often brings the source forward in the mix. Longer release times push the source back in the mix and give a more relaxed feel, while shorter release times sound tighter. Make the release too fast, however, and you might get some pumping or breathy artifacts. The reduction graph is where you tell Soothe where to work. The white line is the depth curve. Think of it as a sidechain EQ that shapes Soothe's sensitivity across the frequency spectrum. You can modify the depth curve with EQ-style bands. Double-click anywhere on the graph to create a node. Boost a region with a band and Soothe starts cutting more aggressively there. Pull down a region and Soothe backs off. There are plenty of different band shapes available, so you can really shape or limit the depth curve according to your need. You can use high and low cut filters to leave certain areas untouched entirely, or use a bandpass filter to focus Soothe on just one specific problem area. Multiple bandpass filters can run in parallel, so you can be as surgical as you want. The graph also shows the reduction Soothe is making in real time. If you want to hear exactly what's being removed, engage the delta button. Soothe will output only what it's taken away from the signal. It's a great way to double-check that you're removing problems and not character. Each band also has a band listen option. Hold the Option or Alt key and click a node to hear the delta for that band only. It's useful for fine-tuning the placement of your bands. The sidechain input allows for some of the most popular tricks people have come up with using Soothe. The level meter in the header shows what's being fed into the sidechain, and you can monitor it directly by clicking the headphones icon. When the sidechain is active, Soothe applies reduction based on the external signal rather than the track it's sitting on. The classic application is ducking. Feed a kick drum into the sidechain of the bass, and Soothe will carve space in the low frequencies in response to each kick hit, keeping them from fighting each other without using static EQ cuts. Similarly, you can feed a lead vocal into the sidechain of a dense instrumental, and Soothe will automatically create space in the frequency ranges the vocal occupies, only when the vocal is present. For these kinds of ducking applications, hard mode gives you the most predictable, controllable results. If you're running conservative gain staging and would like even more depth with the bass ducking trick, boost the low end with a low shelf node. The side panel houses controls for fine-tuning Soothe's behavior. In its minimized state, the panel only shows if any settings differ from default with these indicator lights. You can open up the panel by clicking on it. The stereo section lets you choose between left, right, and mid-side processing, and control how independently each channel is analyzed and processed. At 100% link, both channels share the same analysis. The stereo image is preserved. At 0%, each channel gets its own reduction curve. Values in between are great for widening stereo material, especially in mid-side mode. While the depth curve enables changing the depth across frequencies, the tilt controls allow you to control the other main parameters separately for low and high frequencies. For example, you might keep detail low to smooth out low-mid buildup, while increasing detail for just the highs to catch sharp overtones. The scale section gives you a ceiling for Soothe's cuts with max cut, useful for driving depth hard without letting the strongest cuts become overbearing. There is also wet trim for adjusting the output level of the processed signal. The footer gives you global controls: bypass, delta, mix, and output level. In the quality menu, you can set processing quality per instance, trading CPU for smoother filter updates. There is also the option to switch to linear phase processing. This could be useful when using Soothe in parallel with the mix knob, or when using unlinked processing in mid-side mode to prevent changes in panning. However, minimum phase is the better default for most situations. Finally, low latency mode drops Soothe's latency to near zero, making it viable for tracking and live use. The trade-off is the loss of look-ahead, which means Soothe may occasionally react a fraction late to fast transients or pitch changes like vibrato. Okay, we've gone through most of the interface. However, there's still one hidden panel that only opens up when Soothe is being used in a multi-channel setup. This panel is dynamic and changes depending on how many channels your track has. We'll cover multi-channel operation in a separate video on a later date. That's soothe3. Head over to oxsound.com to download a free 20-day trial and hear what it does on your own material.